today's episode of Thoughts from the Greenhouse. I am Renée Wills, one of the co-founders of Brick City Greenhouse, and I am joined today by my co-founder, Fred Kinch, as well as SVP Omnichannel Marketing, Todd Greene.
Everybody.
And today we wanted to come together and talk about a topic that I think gets a lot of play out there, the topic of omnichannel marketing. And the particular sort of spin that we wanted to take on that today was talking about it from the perspective of a marketer, and this could be you, who doesn't have an unlimited budget, probably doesn't have a big department supporting them for omnichannel marketing. And so, what are some practical tips? What are some things that you can do to make sure that your spend and the channels you pick and what you're doing is working and maximizing the spend you do have? So we thought we'd start off with, what is omnichannel marketing? And Todd and Fred, I know this is one of those things that we hear out there a lot, but I'm not sure we're all talking the same thing. Like, omnichannel marketing, I think, has a wide gamut of what it can mean. I mean, sometimes when I talk to marketers, I think that they don't really necessarily have a full appreciation for it. I know one of the things I think about is, and this is perhaps an oversimplification, is it's basically taking a look at your full-on marketing plan and making sure that when you look across all the channels, that you're maximizing all the channels, that there's synergies across the channels, and that you have analytics in place and that things are talking to each other. But that's like an oversimplification from the perspective. I would like to turn that over to Todd, our omnichannel marketing lead, to say what it means to him.
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. I mean, in marketing, and we've been in it long enough, there's probably dozens of terms we've come across where you ask 10 different people, you get 10 different answers. And it feels like omnichannel and omnichannel marketing is like the latest one kind of added to it. And I mean, I think a lot of us omnichannel marketers, a lot of us marketers talk about it, and we do kind of laugh. I mean, isn't it just marketing? Do we really have to call it omnichannel? But I think there's definitely legitimacy to the term and the phrase and sort of the evolution of marketing and how and how technology has evolved, for sure. And I did like your word synergy that you used. I feel like that might be one of the key components of omnichannel marketing. It's just I think an established definition and realization is that it's more of an evolution from multi-channel marketing, right? So you can market, and I think when you're doing smaller things and just starting off, you kind of choose a channel or two that you want to be on, and then over time we've realized the value of being in different channels. So just the first step in multi-channel, like, look, our audience is using different platforms at different times for different reasons, so let's access them and speak to them in different channels. And so I do think that most omnichannel marketers will look at it and say, okay, what's the next phase from that? And it's synchronizing them. And that does take data, it takes analytics, it takes database, it takes tracking and investment, and it's not easy. I don't think there's not a whole lot of established best practices, to be honest. There's very different tech stacks that can be used. And there are very different approaches. There's small wins. I think just utilizing information from a channel and helping inform another channel is the best place for marketers to start, right? And sometimes you don't need huge database installs. You don't need a whole lot of sophistication. You just need to think about it. Think about what's going here and what's going there, and do you have something that you learned there that you can use there? And I think just getting in that mindset and thinking, and over time thinking where you can scale that and repurpose that and reuse that and how you can integrate data is the best place to sort of start if you're a marketer that's dipping your toes in the omnichannel waters.
So you said start a few times, Todd, and that really kind of struck me, because I think that's like one of the key questions is, where do I start? So let's say I'm a marketer and I'm working on a launch of a new product. I'm in a startup company. Or let's say I've joined the marketing team and I have an established inline brand. And if I have a limited budget, I want to make the most of that limited budget. So, like, what's the number one place that I should look to spend my dollars? Like, is there sort of a rule of thumb? I mean, are there guidelines? Like, what advice would you give the marketers
Yeah.
out there? It's a hard decision.
My advice is always to look internally, right? Look and see what owned media channels do you have, what owned databases, what opt-ins do you already have. A lot of companies, no matter how small you are, I mean, just imagine you were. I know Fred's told the story about how Brick City Greenhouse started, but when you're first starting out, do you have a few contacts? Do you have a few people who you know would want to hear from you, right? And you get, maybe it's 5, maybe it's 10, maybe it's 15 email addresses or followers on LinkedIn, right? But just start. What's the easiest access list of potential customers that you have, right? And surely you have someone or some people who are ready to hear from you, right? And so that owned data, those owned databases, reaching out to them right off the bat and using them in your communications to sort of your launch messaging, filling them out, and then adding some sort of feedback loop. Are they able to fill out a quick survey for you? Are they able to respond to your emails? You can check open rates and kind of look into who's opening and engaging, right? There's really easy, small ways to start communicating to information, to databases, and through platforms that you already own and already have access to without having to invest any money into media buys and driving traffic.
So owned is first.
For
So
sure.
then I don't know. I bet when I think about the next thing, and you can tell me, and maybe this goes back because I think about marketing and I think about one thing that I heard way back when was if you're going to spend the first media dollar, the best place to send it is probably in search. What do you say?
I think here in February 2024, that is probably still accurate. I mean, if you're going to put money into something, it is paid search is controllable. It's showing high intent. It checks all the boxes of the ability to flex your budget, but also target the right audiences, right? Even without a ton of sophistication with retargeting and data-driven messaging and dynamic messaging and anything like that, you're able to find the phrases that your audience will be looking for, and you're able to show up for that, and you're able to increase budget or decrease budget on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. So the flexibility of it is unparalleled, really. And the entry level accessibility, right? When it comes to just starting it off, I mean, if you spend a late night, you can get on there and open up an AdWords account if you don't have one yet for your company, right? And you can start off. And look, I don't want to diminish what a really large, scalable, high quality paid search campaign can be. I mean, there is a lot of sophistication and need for experts as you get bigger. But when you're talking about just scratching the surface, kind of seeing how things can scale and grow, and you're really looking at that, paid search just checks all the boxes. It's great if you got the big budget, but it's also a place to start right off the bat to find the high intent customers.
And so for our marketers out there who are figuring out where to start, search is where it's at. That scalability means that you could have a very small budget, and then as you grow or as you get more additional dollars and more investment dollars, you can get that. But what I also like about search is the fact that it gives you analytics.
Totally,
That
totally.
you have analytics and you can see and you can adjust your campaign so easily. And I think it makes it very accessible. You don't need a media agency necessarily. You could work with a freelancer. You could have somebody in your department. You could do it yourself necessarily just to get things off the ground. So it gives you some place to go.
It does, it does. And you can learn. Once again, you run a month of paid search, you spend a couple $1,000 right off the bat. After that couple $1,000, you know which terms people are clicking, you know which terms are driving traffic to your site. If you set up a decent starter analytics account on your website, you're seeing which keywords are driving the best traffic, right? And so you already have, now you paid for the paid search, but you have this version of free or low cost market research that you can start leveraging for other channels. If a certain headline on paid search got the best traffic? Can you repurpose that as a subject heading for an email, right? Can you start thinking about, oh, is there some messaging out of this that can work on a nice print ad or an ad log to start building out the campaign? Because it does seem like a really important step to make all omnichannel marketing more effective is a nice quality campaign that's been researched and validated to position you right? So you definitely want to make sure that for all of your media and all your channels to work the best, you need to be saying the right thing. And so that requires a nice combination of great creatives, strategic foresight, and also research.
So I was going to say things come in threes.
Yeah.
If one is your owned media or your owned platforms,
Mm-hmm.
like the LinkedIn and the database that you have. Two is paid search. Is there a three that you would automatically go to? Is it that easy? Like 1, 2, 3, or what do you
It
think,
does
Todd?
feel like after that, it does get a little more complex. I think it a lot of it really does depend on your audience. Where are they? How are they engaging? There's just so much volume in search. It makes it an easy number two, just because right off the bat that there's almost nothing out there that won't drive traffic. And so that's why it makes it an easy number two. Everything else, like where is your audience? And what are the spin levels, right? Like I think there's a cliche in marketing that every question, the answer should start with depends. It depends. And I think it really, after that number one and number two, it depends from there on. And it depends on your budget. It depends on your strategy. It depends on how you're judging success. It depends on your audience. It's just there's so many dependencies that really it starts becoming a little more complex when you get really out of those basics. And that's why I would kind of lean back to what I was alluding to a little earlier, just about the messaging. Maybe at that point you might want to dig into your budget and see if it's time to really dig into what you're saying and how you're positioning yourself to those audiences and to that outside world, right? And really making sure that is working hard for you before you start really investing in a lot of media and traffic drivers.
Totally makes sense. Sounds like also it's time to bring in the experts then to help
That's
you.
right. That's right. Yeah, I mean, once again, it depends. I mean, how much budget do you have? How much does this mean to you? And do you need some testing first and piloting? That's another good thing about paid search. But there's that might be part of your decision-making process, and that third place, the next place is to put your meeting. Can some of these things, am I able to pilot? Can I do a quick $10,000 program here? Can I do a couple $1,000 here, right? And just kind of see it. Am I able to track it? And do I have the ability to scale it later? So I think that's a huge input that you need, is just what are you willing to spend and what are you willing to risk? How risky do you want to be when experimenting with different channels, and how measurable are they? I think those are some really, really powerful questions to ask yourself.
I think at this point, one word of advice I would have for the marketer is to take a look at who is their like brain trust on this.
Yeah.
You spoke to the ad agency world of messaging and positioning and things like that, and that team, and hopefully you by this point have a team you're working with by the time you're taking out paid search and things like that, because you had done some research and some thinking about your messaging and your strategy. But who is on that team, and do you have a media partner in place? Because that's something. Once you have your messages and you're trying to think through your plan, you need a media partner to help you figure out the channels, because there's a lot of strategy. You said it was complex. It can be very complex, and those are the experts to pull in. So if I'm going to pull in a media agency, like, do you have some tips for that?
Oh, definitely. I mean, a media, it's still surprising to me in 2024 how many marketers really don't think about the media agency. They're ready to spend a little bit of money on traffic drivers and on media and getting attention, but there's a whole discipline and skill on media planning, media strategy. Where is the audience? How much money should we spend in the different channels? a quality media agency is your strategic partner, just like your creative agency. And so if you're really thinking of driving attention to you and your brand and your company, you really need to look into finding a quality media partner. They can negotiate for you. They can find your audience in places you never even thought of. They can help you retarget. And a good media agency thinks like a marketer. They think about traditional funnels and audience expansion and getting over many of your business challenges. They can think that way, and they can really help you solve the problems and achieve the goals. And so bringing them in early with the creative agency, sometimes they're the same company, but really having them be in lockstep with your strategic vision and with how you will judge success will help you put your budget to work really well and be smart with that budget.
So Todd, so you've identified a media agency that feels like a good fit for you, and it's got all the requirements you need. Like, what do you think are like the things that you should be expecting from them along the journey to craft an omnichannel plan and to measure the metrics as you go along through that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. You obviously want a long-term relationship. Media takes time, most marketing, right? And so you want to make sure that you're finding someone that is in it for the long haul. They're able to come back to you on a predictable frequency and report numbers back to you. You want someone you can trust with if you want to cross-match an MPI list, let's say, or cross-match your database list. You want someone that you want to share that data with and make sure that you're reaching the right people. Make sure that you are getting script lift, let's say, or that they're in line with your business goals, whatever that may be, and that they're able to map everything back to it on a consistent basis, right? And so that's, to me, that's one of the biggest expectations that a marketer should have from really all their agencies, right? But it would be a consistency in communication and an understanding of how success will be judged, and constantly communicating about that in real time. And yeah, I think it's most marketers understand right off the bat, like, look, I need my creative agency involved in my strategic planning and up front. But I do think I see a lot of that being missed for the media agencies. I think that's a missed opportunity. I think the media agencies can come in early also, and they can really provide great insight that you and even your creative agency may not have. So just the partnership, the collaboration, and the ability to plan up front and want to be involved there, and then consistently communicate back out.
That's interesting, because that's a subject, Renee touched on this a little at the beginning about, like, how much do you validate in market? How much do you test and tweak and apply to other channels from in market testing effectively, working media dollars? And so the line between agency, where, I mean, historically you'd spend a lot of money up front and a lot of time up front coming up with the doing insight mining, coming up with a product positioning, coming up with the right messaging, and then deploying that regardless of what the outcome would be, and then you'd revise it possibly 2 or 3 POAs later after you either realized that it worked or didn't work,
Yeah.
And now we really have the opportunity to maybe take some of that traditional kind of uncovering or insight mining or elucidation out of the upfront part of the process, and just put variations of positioning in marketplace, put variations of messaging in the marketplace. And then the line between I mean, I guess the media agency is going to be the deployment of that, and the agency is going to be in lockstep with that. But so how do you see the role of the agency vis-a-vis the marketing agency? The agency versus the media agency evolving over time, and what do you think the future of that might look like?
I think that's also now, right? Like, you can. This is where the obligatory artificial intelligence enters the conversation, I think. But yeah, these media buying demand side platforms, there's so much technology out there now to A/B test, ABC test, ABCD test, right, in real time. And there is the ability to, your media can end up becoming part of your market research in real time. And yeah, there are plenty of case studies and examples of that happening out there where you're looking, and to be honest with you, that to speak about artificial intelligence, I mean, you've got your platforms like Meta, for instance, and Google, who are more and more automating the creative, and sometimes they're even taking it out of your hands in many ways, right? They want to, they want to make more money, get more clicks, get more conversions. And they also want to make it a little easier for you and your media agencies to produce and deliver advertising. And so the technology and the artificial intelligence is becoming huge, and it's able to swap out backgrounds and dynamic copy and headlines and subheaders, and really you can see, wow, which messaging, which visuals are resulting in more actions. And you're able to take that information back and maybe do something a little more above the line and more offline with that. And maybe even alter your campaigns, tweak them and version them, and at least some of your other channels based off of that information. So yeah, definitely. I mean, market research and media buys are one and the same in many ways.
So we've talked a lot about, like, you deploy, you get the metrics back, and then you refine based on that, and you can do that on sometimes in real time, as that unfolds. Talk a little bit about metrics and analytics, and what do you think are, like, some key success measures that you're looking for? What are some reasonable goals? And what are some best practices for like setting up proper metrics and analytics for omnichannel campaigns?
Yeah, good question. I mean, once again, I think it goes back to it depends. I think right up front, you want to know how success will be judged. And, there's if you're doing a DSE or DSA campaign, there's not going to be any NPI cross matching, right? You're not going to know script lift or not. But if you're in market or you're a mature brand and you're able to invest in those databases, then that might be the number one goal of yours, is to see the script lift, right? And so I think it's very important, once again, I don't think I can say this enough, is to have the agencies and the teams who are producing the creative, who are buying the media, involved upfront to know what will success look like and what parts of that success are measurable. And so, best practice depends. And it depends on how the success will be judged. But I think it is important to, there's plenty of best practices around the traditional, like, leading indicators, right? So I think to get in that mindset helps is to know, like, look, your most important outcomes that are measurable are probably going to be, like, by the time you have those, it might be a little late to make a lot of changes to your messaging. And so really being in lockstep with the leading indicators, things like impressions and things like clicks and some of those most basic analytics that we're all familiar with, are important to keep track of and kind of know what's working. And we're talking here now about more of the manual analytics, like not using a lot of those real-time analytics platforms that many clients may not have the investment for at this point, right? And so just making sure that you're tracking a lot of those leading indicators, you're looking at them frequently, and you're really push your agencies or your analytics team, whoever's reporting on this, to tell you what it means. I think a lot of us, I've been guilty of this a lot myself too, but you get down in the grind, you're looking at all these analytics and you're looking at the numbers, and then you've got a beautiful chart and beautiful slides, and then you're like, okay, now what? And I think,
so what do we do? Yeah. So what do we do?
So what do we do with this, right? And it's almost, you've really got to pry sometimes and double click and zoom in. Okay, this number's this, but why? I think, I tell myself to ask the question why 3 times, and why, and it just asks you to dig. Why did we get a lot of traffic on this day? Oh, because we had a huge email campaign. Oh, so why did that email campaign work? Oh, because we targeted the right audience. Oh, why was that the right audience, right? And so you really start digging in, ask 3 why questions for every important piece of data, and just try to figure out, what does that mean? What is the core of this, and what can I do with that information? You found the right audience. Okay, now I can wash, rinse, repeat, and find that audience in other channels, right? And so it's really important to understand what all the data means. And I think that, once again, to bring back the buzzword of artificial intelligence. I think it's helping with that. A lot of these customer database platforms are able to help you understand really what to do next, and they'll even do it in real time.
I love that question. Why, Todd? Recently had a client come to me and say that they were working with their media agency and they got these monthly reports, but they never knew what any of it meant. They had all these numbers and they never did anything with it. So a media agency, and I guess that's a basic expectation, your media agency should be, yes, reporting all the numbers, but should be telling you what it means and the whys and what we should do and coming with recommendations. And I think that was a real source of dissatisfaction. And I can totally relate to that because we're inundated by data these days. What does it mean? And how do we practically use that data in our marketing efforts? And that's the key.
So we're running out of time here. So I just wanted to, I'm sure Todd, you would agree, and Renee, we've barely scratched the surface on a lot of these subjects, and there's much more to talk about. But this is just a taste for just a little bit of flavor for the potential for omnichannel marketing and what individuals like Todd or whoever your agency partner is can certainly bring to the table and the considerations that can help you work through these challenges as a marketer. And so thank you, Todd, for sharing your expertise. Thank you, Renee, for the probing questions. And we look forward to seeing everyone back here for the next episode of Thoughts from the Greenhouse. Stay tuned for the next one coming up soon. And have a great day, everyone. Thank you.